The Cosa Nostra, better known as the Sicilian Mafia, is a name that strikes fear into the hearts of many. With its roots in the sun-soaked island of Sicily, this shadowy organization became one of the most powerful criminal empires the world has ever known. Built on violence, secrecy, and loyalty, the Mafia's grip extended across oceans, leaving a trail of terror and corruption in its wake. But how did this empire come to be, and what led to its inevitable decline? The story of the Mafia begins in the 19th century, amidst the political and economic turmoil of Sicily. Originally formed as loosely organized groups to protect landowners and communities from bandits, these groups gradually evolved into something far more sinister. By the late 1800s, the Cosa Nostra had emerged as a secret society that used violence and intimidation to control Sicily's economy, infiltrating agriculture, trade, and local politics. The foundation of the Cosa Nostra's power was built on Omertà, the Mafia's infamous code of silence. This unwritten rule demanded absolute loyalty and forbade members from cooperating with authorities under any circumstances. Betrayal was met with swift and brutal retribution, ensuring that the organization's secrets were guarded at all costs. Omertà not only protected the Mafia, but also made it nearly impossible for law enforcement to dismantle their operations. At the core of the Mafia's success was its hierarchical structure. The organization was divided into families, each controlling a specific territory. At the top was the boss, who held ultimate authority. Beneath him were the underboss, advisors, and soldiers, who carried out the organization's orders. This structure allowed the Cosa Nostra to operate with military-like precision, ensuring that every member knew their role and responsibilities. By the mid-20th century, the Cosa Nostra was at the height of its power. In Sicily, the Mafia controlled everything from citrus exports to construction contracts, while in the United States, its influence extended into industries like gambling, unions, and even Hollywood. Figures like Lucky Luciano and Al Capone became household names, representing the Mafia's transition from a local Sicilian phenomenon to an international crime syndicate. The Mafia's power was enforced through fear. Assassinations, bombings, and public executions were common tactics used to eliminate rivals and intimidate enemies. One of the most notorious examples of this was the assassination of anti-mafia judge Giovanni Falcone in 1992. His car was blown apart by a roadside bomb, a chilling reminder of the lengths the Cosa Nostra would go to protect their empire. The Cosa Nostra's influence wasn't limited to the underworld. In Sicily, the Mafia infiltrated local and regional governments, using bribes, blackmail, and violence to manipulate elections and secure lucrative public contracts. In the United States, their connections extended to politicians and law enforcement, ensuring that their operations remained untouchable for decades. While the Mafia projected an image of unity, its history is marked by brutal internal conflicts. In the 1980s, the Corleonesi faction, led by Salvatore Toto Riina, waged a bloody war against rival families in Sicily. This conflict, known as the Second Mafia War, left hundreds dead and marked one of the most violent periods in the organization's history. The Corleoneses' rise to power came at a heavy cost, exposing the Mafia to unprecedented scrutiny from law enforcement. The 1990s marked a turning point in the fight against the Cosa Nostra, spurred by public outrage over high-profile assassinations. Italian authorities launched Operation Clean Hands, a massive crackdown on organized crime and political corruption. Using new anti-mafia laws and the testimony of defectors, known as pentiti, law enforcement began dismantling the Mafia's operations piece by piece. Today, the Cosa Nostra is a shadow of its former self. While the organization still exists, decades of arrests, convictions, and internal betrayals have significantly weakened its influence. In Sicily, other criminal organizations, such as the 'Ndrangheta and Camorra, have risen to prominence, leaving the Mafia struggling to maintain its once dominant position. However, the legacy of the Cosa Nostra endures, a stark reminder of the destructive power of organized crime. In the war against the Mafia, one of the most unexpected and powerful tools came from within the organization itself, the pentiti, or informants. These were former Mafia members who broke Omertà, choosing to cooperate with law enforcement in exchange for protection or reduced sentences. Men like Tommaso Buscetta, one of the first high-ranking Mafia defectors, provided invaluable insight into the Cosa Nostra's structure, rituals, and operations. Buscetta's testimony was instrumental in the 1986 Maxi Trial, which saw over 300 Mafia members convicted. For the Mafia, the rise of pentiti was a devastating blow, shattering their aura of invincibility. The Maxi Trial of 1986 to 1987 was a watershed moment in the fight against the Mafia. Held in a specially constructed bunker courtroom in Palermo, it was the largest trial against organized crime in history. Led by judges Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino, the trial exposed the inner workings of the Cosa Nostra and resulted in life sentences for many of its top leaders, including Salvatore Riina in absentia. While the trial was a victory for justice, it came at a heavy price. Both Falcone and Borsellino were assassinated shortly after, their deaths highlighting the Mafia's enduring capacity for violence. While the Sicilian Mafia faced mounting pressure at home, their operations abroad continued to thrive. In the United States, the Cosa Nostra's American counterpart remained deeply entrenched in industries such as construction, waste management, and gambling. The infamous Pizza Connection case in the 1980s revealed a multi-million-dollar drug trafficking operation that funneled heroin from Sicily to the U.S. under the guise of pizza parlors. This international reach underscored the Mafia's ability to adapt and survive, even as their power waned in Sicily. Traditionally, the Cosa Nostra operated as a male-dominated organization, with women relegated to supporting roles within families. However, as law enforcement dismantled the Mafia's leadership, women began stepping into more prominent roles. Widows of slain bosses, for instance, often assumed control of their husbands' operations, ensuring the continuity of their clans. While still rare, the rise of women in the Mafia has challenged the organization's deeply patriarchal structure, demonstrating its ability to evolve in response to external pressures. The Mafia's influence extends far beyond the criminal underworld. It has left an indelible mark on popular culture. From the iconic film The Godfather to the gritty realism of The Sopranos, the Cosa Nostra has been romanticized and scrutinized in equal measure. These depictions, while often exaggerated, have contributed to the mystique surrounding the Mafia, shaping public perceptions of organized crime. However, for those who lived under the Mafia's rule, the reality was far from glamorous, a life marked by fear, violence, and oppression. Despite its decline, the Cosa Nostra has not disappeared entirely. In recent years, the organization has shifted its focus to more discreet operations, such as money laundering, cybercrime, and infiltrating legitimate businesses. By avoiding the flashy violence of their past, the modern Mafia seeks to remain under the radar while continuing to profit from illegal activities. However, ongoing surveillance and international cooperation have made it increasingly difficult for them to regain their former dominance. As the Mafia's power has waned, other criminal organizations have risen to fill the void. The 'Ndrangheta of Calabria, for example, has eclipsed the Cosa Nostra as Italy's most powerful mafia, controlling a significant portion of Europe's cocaine trade. Similarly, the Camorra of Naples has expanded its influence through a combination of violence and corruption. These groups have capitalized on the mafia's decline, reshaping the landscape of organized crime in Italy and beyond. One of the most significant developments in the fight against the mafia has been the rise of public resistance. Grassroots movements like Addio Pizzo, a campaign encouraging businesses to refuse paying protection money, have gained traction in Sicily, empowering citizens to stand up against organized crime. These efforts, combined with increased transparency and education, have helped to weaken the mafia's stranglehold on local communities, offering hope for a future free from their influence. The story of the Cosa Nostra is a cautionary tale of what happens when power goes unchecked. For decades, the mafia thrived by exploiting poverty, corruption, and fear, creating an empire built on the suffering of others. Their eventual decline serves as a reminder of the importance of justice, accountability, and the resilience of those who refuse to be silenced. While the mafia's influence may never be entirely eradicated, its history offers valuable lessons for the fight against organized crime today. The legacy of the Cosa Nostra is one of violence and fear, but also of resistance and justice. From their humble beginnings in the hills of Sicily to their downfall at the hands of courageous judges, defectors, and ordinary citizens, their story is a powerful reminder of the human cost of organized crime. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the dark heart of the mafia. Don't forget to subscribe to Crime Chronicles for more in-depth looks at the world's most infamous crimes.